Well, I was wrong about the thief being hired by Sid. Based on this week's episode titled Retrieval, the thief that stole the Marauder was simply a local kid from the Ipsium mine on the other side of the planet. So this episode didn't quite do it for me, but I'll talk about my thoughts after I break down a few things. The episode picks up where last week left off, with the Bad Batch stranded on a remote planet after their ship was stolen by an unknown thief. While they are fixing up a skiff, Omega comes up with the idea to track Gonki. That's their Gonk droid in case you forgot. We're quickly introduced to the thief, who is a kid named Benny. Benny works for Mako, who took over a large Ipsium mine after the Techno Union was driven out. The Techno Union, led by Wat Tambor, was one of the organizations that aligned with Count Dooku and the Separatists during the Clone Wars. Mako had been secretly taking the majority of the profits from the Ipsium mine while telling his workers, which include Benny and others, that the Ipsium is degrading. This is basically his way of making everyone work harder in hopes that they will strike a better source of Ipsium. It does not take long for the Bad Batch to fix the skiff and traverse the distance to Gonki's location at Mako's mine. The squad quickly forces Benny into helping them find their ship, which has been stripped for parts. Well, specifically the hyperdrive was removed. After reaching the Marauder, Omega and Benny are sent to deactivate the shield so that the Bad Batch can fly out of the mine. Of course, they run into trouble and Omega witnesses just how cruel Mako is. While accessing the shield's code, she discovers the truth that Mako has been hiding from his workers. The Ipsium profits are much higher than he has been sharing. This isn't a surprise to us, as we've seen how well he is doing compared to his workers. The scene where he's feasting reminded me of Denethor in Return of the King as his son and soldiers ride to their deaths. In a final confrontation with Mako, the truth is revealed and Mako falls into the abyss of the Ipsium mine. Benny explains that he and all his friends will be okay now that Mako's gone. So truthfully, this episode was a bit disappointing as it didn't accomplish what I was hoping it would, and that's maybe some closure or maybe the next step with Sid. I had theorized that Sid hired the thief, which turned out to be wrong, and that's okay. I still think the Bad Batch is going to have to reevaluate their relationship with Sid though, and I had hoped we would get more of that in this episode. It's clear that she does not have their best interest in mind, but that leads me to my next theory. The next episode is called Metamorphosis, which is a process where an insect or amphibious creature transforms from its immature state to an adult stage. This makes me wonder if we're going to see the Bad Batch reach their next stage, which should be independence from Sid, right? I actually think that it will be Omega who makes the final decision or pushes the Bad Batch to leave Sid. At this point, she seems to be the only one who cares about making a difference in the galaxy, and we've run into a lot of characters like Mako, and I think that it's been building Omega's perspective that the galaxy is full of corruption beyond the Empire. Overall, this episode was not that enjoyable to me. I'm really working to set my expectations to what is appropriate for this show. I gotta remember that this is geared towards kids with some bigger picture Star Wars things like what we saw in episode 3, 7, and 8 sprinkled in. And this isn't a new formula. The Clone Wars and Rebels did this, but I do think that those shows had some other elements in them that made even the fillers a bit more enjoyable. Perhaps that it was the characters, perhaps it was the time they were set in, perhaps it was simply my age when I was watching those for the first time. Taking the show as a whole helps us to understand the place that filler episodes have within the scheme of a whole show's story. So perhaps when the Bad Batch is all said and done, we might look back and have a little bit more of an understanding on these filler episodes. But for now, it wasn't really an episode that I see myself going back and watching. I do think this episode's big takeaway was that the Bad Batch once again did not need Sid to get out of trouble. In fact, they may even be more ready to leave Sid than they ever have been, especially after her unwillingness to help them. This episode also developed Omega's perspective on the galaxy. Her light bulb moment at the end with Tech really hinted that perhaps she's gonna go through some form of metamorphosis, so to speak, by the end of this season. I think she's recognizing that there is more evil in the galaxy than just the Empire, which I think really shows that there could be a future for the Bad Batch even after they break free of the Empire. I think I'll make a separate video breaking down what I think that means, but for now, I think it's important to recognize that Omega is seeing beyond just breaking free of the Empire, which is kind of what they've been doing at this point. They've been in survival mode on the run from the Empire, and Omega is starting to see beyond that. What did you think of this episode? Rate it out of 10 in the comments below and leave a like on your way out. As always, have a great rest of your day and may the Force be with you.